Hello there. Welcome to another episode for Rhino 6 for Mac. The previous episode started with logos, and we're going to continue on that. So if you haven't watched that, please take a look so you can get caught up. So this is where we left off last time, and we brought in images as an underlay. Um, the advice here is to take the time to set up things so that you can easily hide and show afterwards. We're going to continue on the logos. Remember that we introduced our Trello board here that provides you a general outline. This is just a skeleton of an outline. More details will be added, so maybe by the time you're watching this, there will be more material here. And the logos and sample files, I've placed them here. You can feel free to bring in your own images. So let's bring in yet another one. We can switch to our underlay layer, bring in our mountains logo, and we'll just click and click. Now, last time we did not worry about the size, but I'm going to take a moment to talk about that. Remember that in the panels, we made sure the materials panel is on, and so we can set each image if we need to make it a little bit more transparent. And what we're going to do is we can see that it is a certain size. And the one thing we can do first is dimension. Well, actually, let's take a look at a couple other tools. You can use length to select the curve. All right, enter. So you'll see at the bottom here, 2.975 inches. So you could do that if you want. But if you want a way to indicate the dimension as you change it, we can use the dimension tool. All right, we can dimension. All right, let's see. I've got too many O snaps on here. To here. All right, is really big, so we can make it double click that. That is its own object. Let's say half the size. Okay. And there's actually a couple ways we could do things. We could actually shift and drag, and you see how things change. Or we could do scale. We pick a base point, reference point, and then we can shrink it that way. So lots of different ways to do it, and you can find the size that you want. Okay, so let's assume this is the size that we want. We're going to do a different layer here. Make that the active layer, and we can remind ourselves what is shown. So let's focus first on the mountain peaks. So we can pull up our polyline here. And whenever you're doing the tracing, you figure out what are sort of the assumptions. So for instance, the base of the mountains here, we're going to assume that they're all collinear, or rather horizontal. So when we make the next mountain peaks, we're going to make sure that's the case. For instance, this angle that I'm finishing off here, is it 90 degrees, or does it really matter, right? It's just an aesthetic thing here, so maybe it doesn't matter as much. All right, so we have our first mountain peak. And what we could, if you want practice, you can trace this over. Whenever there's two things on top of each other, it tells you, asks you which one you want to pick. So to avoid that, we can just lock the bottom layer and we'll be ready to go. So you could trace to practice, and let's say you were to trace to practice. And when I start this, I can make sure, all right, my smart track is on, and I said, hey, Rhino, I want to sort of pick up this same line. Try that again, right there. That'll ensure it's on the same line. All right, so you move around as you need. Okay. Alternatively, we could pick this. We can do an alt drag or copy and paste. Then we can move the control points. One good thing about Rhino is you can very easily modify the control points as you need. So there you go, the mountain peaks, pretty straightforward. Now on to the lettering. So the lettering is going to give us a chance to play with a couple of other 2D editing tools. We said earlier with our circles that 3-point circle is good. That way you can just select the 3 points. So remember in Rhino, this underline means if you type the letter O, it'll pick that type of command. So just pick any 3 points. We got our first circle. And then we're going to assume that this outer part of the A is concentric. So make sure you have your center O snap on. The bottom left. We'll repeat the circle. You mouse over here, and so Rhino is saying, hey, if you click, you're going to pick the center, which is what we want. And by default, we're just doing a normal 2-point circle, and to our best eye, yes, it looks like it is indeed concentric. So we can click that. Now, the remainder of the form is just a polyline, and let's build that out. Polyline. And if you want, you can try to get it right on. All right, I'm going to turn the center O snap on here, off. You can make sure it's right on, or you could extend beyond it. We can always trim the pieces afterwards. Now, when we go around the A, we're going to assume that these are all 90 degrees. So I can hold my Shift key, and that'll force the ortho mode to be on. Okay, this will also make sure it's perfectly horizontal, vertical, all that. Now let's say just for quickness, all right, I don't want to take the time to get it right on, or you could turn on intersect here, but let's just extend it beyond, and then press enter. Okay, and so what we can do now is we can trim. So I don't think I've talked about trim. So we're going to pick the cutting object. So this A, that's the thing we want to cut that. So we can pick the top piece here, all right, and then press enter. And then the A is what we want to trim. And you see it's automatically picked the piece, right? You might have to zoom in. And there we go. So press enter to finish that. And then we have this little piece here to trim also. So we can do trim again. We want this to be the cutting object now. Now that assumes this is going to intersect, so let's see if this works. Press enter. This is the thing that I want to trim, and you're good to go. So zoom out a little bit. If you want, you can hide that bottom layer. You have a true A. So we notice that the form is actually very similar. We have another A, and then we also have the D. So to save us some work, we can pick the entire thing. Now, we could group this, and it'll sort of like it's sort of a temporary put together, or we can just do join. And now it is one shape, or rather sort of two pieces together. So join, I think you need the curves to be touching, but this is good enough for our purposes. Click and drag, and turns out, yep, the A is very similar to the D, so I can continue alt dragging. When I alt drag on the red arrow, that'll make sure it stays in line. That's what I want. Okay, and then here, all right, the D, you might think, hey, I could extend it, or I can just click and drag the control points. Now let's see if this is going to work out for me here. Can I hold ortho? Nope. Oh, it looks like we have another control point was created. All right, that's going to complicate things. We could probably, can we delete that control point? Yeah, this might sort of make things complicated. So what I would do at this point, there's tons of different ways. We're just going to extend the line this way. And then we can trim as needed. All right, and let's see. I can pick up this smart track here. Make sure it stays on. Come on. Like that. Okay. And then finish like that. Okay. And we can hide our underlay. All right. And then we can trim away. We can use this to cut. And we should be able to trim this piece away. Okay. There you go. So we can do the same thing. Oops. All right. We actually don't need this A anymore because we can just bring the D over. We can use our right to left selection tool. That's going to highlight anything it touches. And we can turn on our underlay. And then click and drag that over. And there you go. The I is pretty straightforward, so I'll let you do that. I think this is actually a good pausing point. Maybe we'll break it up into 3 parts. The S brings us a new thing, the curves with control points, and then we'll get to our 5th logo. So I think this is a good stopping point. And in summary, we talked about dimensions. If we turned on the underlay layer here, so you can see roughly what size it is. And we did some polylines and also some trimming of circles intersecting with lines. The last episode, in terms of the basic logo tracing, we will do um, some curves. Sometimes you call them splines. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.